Hi there, and welcome again to Cooking with Love. I'm your host, Linda Verasso, and behind the camera we have Fred Hickson, who's the mastermind behind this show. So once again, thank you, Fred. Today, what we're going to do is one of my favorite things, which is make fresh mozzarella. I don't know if there's anybody who doesn't enjoy fresh mozzarella. So we're going to do that. I'm going to show you how easy it actually is to make. And as part of that, after we make the mozzarella, of course, we're going to put it into a nice little caprese salad. I'm going to give you a recipe for the wonderful balsamic vinaigrette that we use here at the restaurant. And by the end of this meal, you have a wonderful salad that you can serve all of your friends. So shall we get started? First thing we're going to do is talk a little bit about what goes into cheese making. Now, it can be a little intimidating for folks who aren't either used to cooking or aren't handy in the kitchen, but I'm here to tell you it is one of the simplest things you can do. And it really is just a matter of time and temperature. And I'll show you what I mean as we go along. Now, to make cheese, there are a couple of ingredients that you need that you certainly aren't going to have in your pantry. But there are places around the area, certainly around town, where you can pick them up at any point. And one of the things you can also do is get kits online. Now, when I first started making cheese, I actually started with this kit right here. This is something you can get online. It's called cheesemaking.com, a very popular website. You can make all types of cheeses. This particular kit, I believe, costs about $30, and it will give you enough stuff to make about 30 pounds of fresh mozzarella. So needless to say, $1 a pound is not a bad deal when you think about how much it costs in the store. Now, you got to add the cost of milk to that, of course, but all in all, it's definitely worth it, and there is nothing like fresh mozzarella. So this kit, as I said, cheesemakingkit.com, comes with those different things, as I mentioned, you need. Let me just show you what is included in here. Certainly you'll get your directions. And in this kit, you can make both fresh mozzarella as well as fresh ricotta. We're not going to do ricotta in the show. We'll save that for another one. But today we are going to do the fresh mozz. And we have the instruction book. You will also get with this a little bag of cheese salt, which is simply a salt that's more shaved. It's more easily absorbed into the cheese. You could use a regular salt, but this works out nicely. Then what you have is citric acid. This is one of those things that you aren't necessarily going to find at your local grocery store. However, you can often find it during canning seasons. You may find it over where the mason jars are and things like that. Where you will definitely find this, as well as something called rennet, which is key to making any cheese. In this kit, you'll get rennet tablets. You'll get 10 of these, I believe. Yes, 10 of those. And each tablet you use 4 times. So you only use a quarter tablet on each one of these. Or you can also get the liquid rennet. And all of these things you're looking at in front of you can be bought at a store called the Homebrew Emporium. It's right here in Weymouth, and it is right on Randolph Street in Weymouth. If you'd like to go, you can also get ingredients for making beer and wine as well. So it's a neat little store. And if you buy this kit and then you want to replenish instead of ordering online, just take a ride there and you'll see all kinds of great stuff. That is where I got the liquid rennet. You don't get the liquid rennet with the box, you get the tablet. Either one works just fine. The liquid to me is just a little easier because I don't have to spend time waiting for it to dissolve or crush up the little tablet. So that's why I'm using the liquid rennet here. So now that we know all the ingredients, I'm going to show you how we actually start and put this all together. Okay, so let's move this aside. All right, we're going to jump right in here, very simple. And actually, before we actually start with the ingredients, let me just do the right thing. And that is to let you know that technically we're not making fresh mozzarella. If you're in Italy, the only fresh mozzarella is that made with buffalo milk. And when you're making it with cow's milk, is what we're doing here, it is a fior di latte. And that's really the proper name for this. But it is, you and I will call it fresh mozzarella, as will just about everybody else. But if you're in Italy, if it's not buffalo milk, then it's not the real thing. Although they do make it both ways there as well. So that's what we're working with. To start, as you'll know in the instructions, you need a thermometer for sure. This kit, by the way, comes with one. All right, and the first thing you'll do is you'll take a teaspoon and a half of citric acid, which I have here in my bowl, and you're going to add about a cup of cool chlorine-free water. So basically that means don't take it out of your tap. Get a bottle of some kind of water and just use that. Just get a cup of water and just dissolve that citric acid. Doesn't take very long at all. Right in there. We're going to put that aside for a moment. And then we have about a quarter cup of cool water, non-chlorine water again, that we're going to put our rennet in and dissolve in there. Now, as I mentioned, if I was using the tablet, I would take a quarter piece of that tablet, crush it up, put it in. I'm going to use the liquid, which makes my life a little easier. And it's a quarter teaspoon of the vegetable rennet liquid. Now, they do have non-vegetable rennet too. But this works just as well, and if you have a vegetarian, then they're much happier that way. So I'm just going to stir that rennet around. We're good to go. And the last thing I have waiting is the cheese salt, and we'll get there in a minute. So, as I said, simple process. First thing we're going to do, we're going to pick up our citric acid water. And this is the step one. You've got to acidify the milk. And that is going to allow us to get to the curds we're looking for. So we put the citric acid that has been dissolved in a cup of water into the pan. Now, mind you, the important thing is this must be a stainless steel or non-aluminum pan, non-cast iron pan. So it can be stainless steel or some other metal as long as it's not aluminum or cast iron. We're going to turn our heat on, about medium, I'd say. And to that citric acid now, we're going to add a gallon of whole milk. Now, you can use different kinds of milk if you want to, but what you can't use is ultra-pasteurized milk. Because when they ultra-pasteurize something, they get it to a temperature that causes things to change chemically. I don't know what they are, but it causes them to change. And you will not get what you're looking for in the end. So we're using a whole milk, just a whole milk here, regular old milk you'll find at your grocery store. And we are going to mix that with the citric acid. We'll stir that around pretty vigorously. We want this to mix well. And what we're going to do now, and this is going to take about 5 or 8 minutes, we are going to just continue to stir this, and we'll get our thermometer in there, and we are going to bring that up to a temperature of 90 degrees. Once it hits 90 degrees, we'll move on to the next step. So here we are. I'm going to stir for a while. It's going to take about 5 minutes or so, and then we'll come on back once it gets there, and we'll do the next part. Okay, so now we're at 90 degrees. We're going to remove the thermometer, and we're going to bring our entire pan off of the stove here. I just shut that off a moment ago. And to this now, we're going to add the rennet. The rennet, as you remember, we dissolved in a little bit of water here. Now, the trick with rennet is to not over stir. And instead of stirring around, you move your spoon up and down around the pan. So that's what we're going to do. Don't ask me the reasons I do it like that, but that's what it tells me to do, and that's what works, so therefore, that's what we're going to do. And you definitely don't want to go much more than 30 seconds, minute tops, but you're just trying to distribute the rennet around to the milk that hit 90 degrees from the stove. Once that 30 seconds is up, I think we're at about 30 seconds now. We're going to get a cover, which I don't have here, and we are going to let it sit for 5 minutes to create the curd. Okay, so let me grab a cover for that, and we'll let it sit, and in 5 minutes we'll see what we look like. Okay, so we've waited 5 minutes and just a few seconds more actually. So now what we're going to do is we remove the cover and we put that aside. And what you're trying to test for here, and you just use your hand to do it, is as you press down on the edge of the curd, you just want to see that it's coming away easily and cleanly from the side of the pan. And this in fact is. It's like a solid, and it's pulling right away. If it doesn't pull away cleanly like that, then what you're going to need to do is just cover it up again and let it sit for another few minutes. Sometimes it can take up to 10 minutes to get a nice firm curd. This one was done right away in the 5-minute time, so we're good to go. So once we have that, the next step is to cut it. What you want to do is grab a knife that's long enough to reach the bottom of your pan, and you simply take it, and you'll notice my knife is at an angle. I am just going to put it in and slice across, maybe an inch apart, just making 1-inch slices all the way across. This is referred to as cutting the curd, nothing too exciting there. Once I go that way, then I'm going to take it and do it the other way. So what we're going to end up with is like 1-inch chunks of the curd that we just made. There we go. Now the next step, we're going to get it back on the heat, on a slow heat. Turn that on, medium, medium, low. And now the next step is to take and stir this around, which will break up those chunks you just did, but you don't want to go too fast. Just stir them around slowly until your temperature reaches 105 degrees. Now, as we're doing this, being patient, you don't want to blast the heat to get up to 105 quickly or anything like that. Just take your time. Stir slowly. You can see I'm not really vigorously stirring, just nice and slowly back and forth. It's going to take about 6 or 8 minutes to go from the 90 degrees it's at up to 105. And once it hits 105, we're going to take it off the heat and we're going to continue stirring. And I'll show you that in just a moment once we get there. Right now, I'm just going to stir slowly and watch that temperature rise to where we need it to be. Okay, so it looks like we are just at 105 degrees here. So I am going to shut this off and make sure we're there. We are. And I'm going to shut off the heat, move the thermometer, take it off the heat one more time. And now I'm just going to continue to stir this for about 2 to 5 minutes. Certainly 2 is your minimum, 5 is your max. The more you stir it, the firmer your cheese will be. I like a nice soft fresh mozzarella, so I'm only going to stir it for about 2 minutes here. And then from that point, after those 2 minutes are up, I'll show you this next couple of final steps in this process. Believe it or not, we're almost done. Okay, so we have finished the extra stirring after you take it off the heat. And now what you're going to do is drain the whey from the curd. And when you buy the kit, you will actually get some butter muslin, is what it's called. It's that cheesecloth. You can get that at any store as well, but you do get some in the kit. And you can either use that with a regular colander, and you just line your colander with a piece of this so that when you do put the curds in, they don't fall through. Or you could use a fine sieve, which I'm going to use here instead of the cheesecloth, and that will do the same trick. The only problem with that is sometimes some of the curd will stick to the sieve, but we're going to go this way anyway. And what we're going to do is, as I said, we'll just take this pan, And we have the curd right in the whey in here. And I'm going to just pour off that whey slowly. Now obviously if you're at home and not in the dining room of a restaurant, you can just do this right into your sink. But I want to show you here, so we're going to put the excess whey into a bowl here. Just put that all in. Let's get the rest of those curds in there. Great. We'll put that aside, and then we're going to lift this up. I'm going to take it and try to move the curd aside to allow the excess whey to fall through the sieve. And as you can probably tell, hopefully, what we're left with here is a yellowish cloudy liquid, that's known as the whey, and here is all of the curd. You look at it, it looks a little bit like cottage cheese at the moment. Once you have most of that water done, and whey off, I should say, you're going to get a microwave-safe bowl. It's just a little glass Pyrex bowl. Now you can do this two ways. The traditional way is to do it in hot water baths. If you get the kit that tells you how to do it. I like to do things more quickly, sometimes easier. We're going to use the microwave method. So we take this, we're going to pour that curd right into this bowl, and then we're going to go over to the microwave and put it in for a minute. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to put it in the microwave for a minute, and that's going to bring the temperature of the cheese up closer to 135. 135 is the temperature at which you can start stretching it. It will not stretch unless it's at least that. And when it's 135 degrees, that means it's pretty hot. So wear gloves, or else you'll be not very happy about the fact you didn't. So we put on some gloves, and it's a two-step process in the microwave. As I said, we have the first minute. There's about 30 seconds left here. When we pull this out, we are going to literally fold the curd over onto itself, drain a little more of the whey out that is released as it's heating. We're going to add that cheese salt we had set aside and fold it some more. And then we're going to put it back in the microwave for another 30 seconds, at which time, after that, we should be ready to start stretching. So 2 and 1, there we go. We're going to take it. I don't know if you can tell, as I drain here, the rest of the way, you can see more liquid is been released. You can feel these start to really soften up. When I say fold it onto itself, that's exactly what I'm saying, what I mean. And what we're going to do, I had the salt somewhere. I don't know where I put it. Here we are. And we're going to just sprinkle about a teaspoon of that cheese salt. Now this is optional. You don't have to have extra salt in here if you don't want to. But I do recommend it. A teaspoon of salt is not a great deal. Well, unless one person eats it. But this teaspoon will give it some really nice flavor that I think is important for this cheese. Okay, so here we go. It's all worked in there with the salt. Now I'm going to take it, drain that little bit more that's been released as I'm just working it, put it back in the microwave for 30 seconds, and then I'll take it out and show you how we stretch it. Okay, so we've now put it in for that other 30 seconds. We're going to drain the last of the whey off. And then I'm going to pull this out and begin stretching it. You can see the steam and how hot it is. You stretch it just like taffy. You just fold it over to itself, and then you stretch. And that's hot, trust me. And then you're going to stretch it again. And what you're looking for is for it to begin to get shiny. I don't know if you can see that really closely, but it's starting to have a shimmer to it. And this is actually called the, oh my God, what is the name? It's a stretching technique. There is an Italian name for it. It is pasta filata, which means spun paste. And that is the name of the technique we're using right here. I hope you can see it's shining up there. And once it starts to get that shininess, which it really is, you're pretty much done. At this point, you can transform this into almost anything you want to in terms of size. So you could rip off a small little ball and make a little bocconcini, or you can do a much larger log. We are going to actually split this in half. I'm going to leave one half in there for the moment. I'm going to make a ball out of this one. Just a traditional ball of fresh mozzarella. And what you do at this point is, after you have this all formed however you want to, you plunge this into 50-degree water. We have a container right here of 50-degree water. We are going to put it in there and let it sit straight in the water for 5 minutes. That helps keep the shine and the shape and the texture. After 5 minutes, we're going to transfer it over into this container, which is freezing water, and that's going to stay in there for 15 minutes. But while that is actually sitting, I'm going to take this other half and show you some of the great things you can do with it. Instead of forming this into a ball, I'm going to take it and put it on my cutting board, stretch it out into a square, and at this point, you can do whatever you want to it. What I'm choosing to do is to add some sliced prosciutto. We're going to put the sliced prosciutto right inside, lay that out nicely. You've probably all seen this at the store. Very easy to make. You could layer a little pesto in here. We're going to take some fresh basil leaves and put those in. You could sprinkle anything you want to at this point, some herbs, whatever makes you happy, really. If you like different kinds of fresh herbs in here, feel free, rosemary, etc. Once you have whatever you want in there, then you're going to take it and roll it like a Swiss roll, if you will. I'm going to fold it over and tightly roll it up. And you might want to leave a little bit of the cheese margin around, and that way you can seal it nicely. And you'll see when we slice this in just a little bit what that looks like. So I'm closing that up. We got a little hole there, so we're going to go back and put that together. And the ends I'm sealing. And what we have here then is a roll of mozzarella that's been stuffed with prosciutto, a little basil leaf. As I said, you can do whatever you want. When you're doing this, however, this goes directly into the freezing water. And you can put that right in there and let that sit for about 10-15 minutes, and then you're ready to eat. And that's as simple as it gets. So we're going to take a few moments now. We're going to let the single, just the pure mozzarella, sit for 5 minutes. We're going to move it over here to the 15, and when we're all done, we're going to take them out, and I'm going to show you how to make some balsamic vinaigrette while we wait, and then we'll put it all together in a nice caprese salad. Okay, so if you ask me, there's only one way to eat fresh mozzarella, and that's with tomatoes and fresh basil and a balsamic vinaigrette. So let me show you how to make a very simple balsamic vinaigrette. It's got just probably everything you have in your house. You don't need to go get anything more. You start with a little balsamic vinegar. And in this case, I'm going to use this hand blender. If you have one of these, a lot of people have one of these tucked away in the back of their shelves and they've never really used it. Making dressings is a wonderful way to use this machine. If you don't have one of these, do the same thing in your blender. And if you don't have a blender, you can certainly whisk it yourself, but the difference will be that it will not suspend and all stay solid. I don't know what the word is I'm looking for. It won't all stay together as easily. It will start to separate if you don't use an electronic device. So we're going to use this. We have about 1/3 of a cup, or actually about 1/2 a cup of balsamic vinegar here. To this I'm going to add some spices. I've got a couple of teaspoons each of dried basil and dried parsley. And we're going to add that right to it. Here we have about a teaspoon each of garlic powder and onion powder. We're going to add those right to it. It's going to stick in there a little bit. Help that out. And then we add just a little black pepper into that. Now you can see I'm putting it all right into my mixing cup here, and I think it's easiest to do that. Then what I want to do is just take a few little spins and mix these spices around. And then to that, we're going to drip in our oil, and it's essential that you do this slowly. That is what's going to help the whole mixture emulsify and suspend all of the ingredients so that when you're pouring it, it is all the way it should be. So we're going to turn this on. You won't hear me for a sec. And you'll see how slowly I drip the oil in. We're almost done. Another little bit here, but you can see as you're doing it, you'll see how thick it becomes. And that is entirely the function of how slowly you drip in and mix that oil together. There we go, and you can tell from looking at it that it's thickened up significantly. And also, as I mentioned to you, as you know, vinegar and oil don't mix. That's why when you have a salad dressing, a vinaigrette, it's often separated and you have to shake up that bottle. Well, when you use this technique and use a blender or a hand blender and you slowly drip that oil in, it actually causes the whatever inside of them, molecules or whatever, to work such that we get a much more consistent and suspended dressing that will usually stay this way for days, if not weeks. You might have to shake it a little bit in the end, but certainly not for a little while. So that's the balsamic vinaigrette. That's how easy that is. We're going to move this aside. I would say that our fresh mozzarella is just moments away from being ready. What I'm going to do is just clear up this area a little bit and bring in some of the things I need for our final dish, and we'll be done here in just a moment. Okay, so now our fresh mozzarella is ready. It's been sitting in the ice water now for about 15 minutes. And we removed the one that we just made the ball out of. And here's the log that we have stuffed with prosciutto and some fresh basil. And what we're going to do now is take everything we learned today, which is how to make the fresh mozzarella and our balsamic vinaigrette, and we're going to turn that into a nice salad for you to enjoy. To do that, I like using nice tomatoes. Now, it's still a time where you got a few more garden tomatoes out there, and if you do, then absolutely use them. If not, and you get a nice ripe one on the vine that you can get at the grocery store now. And it really has just a few ingredients. I put a little greens on the plate just to make it look pretty. And then you can use either your stuffed mozzarella or the plain. We're actually going to use both. First thing we're going to do, however, is get some nice slices of the tomato. I like full round slices, maybe about an eighth to a quarter inch thick. We'll just do a few of those. You can make these individual salads or you can make one large one, it's up to you. I also enjoy having a little bit of red onion, so I'm going to take the knife and just chop that up just a little bit. And we'll sprinkle that on top in just a minute. And then of course we need fresh basil. So here's some fresh basil. I'm going to take just a couple leaves there. And I take those leaves, put them on top of each other. I'm going to roll them up tightly. And then I'm going to slice them. That's actually what's known as chiffonade, which is French for ribbon. And what happens is you slice those in little slices and you'll have little beautiful strings of fresh basil that we're going to put on top in just a minute. So we have our onion, our basil, our tomato ready. The only thing we need is our fresh mozzarella. And we'll do it two ways here. As you know, we had this one we stuffed, which I'm just going to cut here. We don't need all of it. If you can tell from looking at it, you can see the roll of the prosciutto with the fresh basil right inside. We're going to slice this. Probably grab just maybe two nice slices of that. I like to put a piece of tomato down, a little bit of the mozzarella. Now these tomatoes are large, so I'm actually going to put two little pieces of the fresh mozzarella that's been stuffed there. We'll cut one more, and then I'm going to cut the pure mozzarella down. We'll get a couple slices of that. Obviously, these are a little larger and fit with the tomato a little nicely, so we're going to put a piece of tomato down there. We'll use this here, and we're going to put another piece of tomato and another piece, and we're going to do the same thing on this side. Put another piece of tomato, and we'll put it finally with just one more piece of the swirl mozzarella. Then I'd like to just take, and we're going to just sprinkle with a little bit of red onion, our fresh basil, and then finally the little balsamic vinaigrette. We don't want to put too much of this on. We're just going to take it and we're going to almost empty the spoon out before I even put it on there. Almost dip the spoon in because it's thick enough that that works. And just giving it a little bit of that balsamic flavor. Now some people just like a little bit of olive oil on here, and that's fine too. But that's how we make our caprese salad. As you can tell, we have the stuffed prosciutto and fresh basil here, the plain mozzarella there, both of which we made in just under 30 minutes. And now we're going to have a piece, for sure. So I'm going to take this, grab my fork and knife. I'm going to cut a little bit of the tomato with a little bit of the stuffed mozzarella first. We have some of the dressing right on it. That is really good. You can taste the texture of the cheese is very soft. And that is really all about how long you stir, if you're making sure you put it into the temperature of the water that you're supposed to. All of those instructions, as I said, we'll give to you. But it is absolutely something you need to try at home. So here you go, fresh mozzarella made easy, under 30 minutes. You'll have a wonderful caprese salad for you and all your friends, if you feel like sharing. That's all we got. So if you want to try it, please do. And make sure you put a lot of love into it when you do. Thank you.